What's going on, everybody? Back again for another episode of my midweek Q&A. This is without a doubt my favorite part of the week, my favorite episode of the week. I genuinely look forward to seeing the questions that you all have for me every week. If you've got a question for an upcoming episode, down below in the comments, all you have to do is type your question. I pick 5 questions every week, and I just kind of give you my thoughts on it. Now, card-related questions are best, but sometimes there's things that are just kind of sport-related or, baseball-related, whatever. So do not hesitate to ask your question below. Had a really big week this week. My nephew got married on Saturday, and I was the officiant of the wedding. I was the guy up there doing the whole ceremony. First time I'd ever done that. Huge honor. I love my nephew so much, and I was so honored that he asked me to do that. My daughter's soccer schedule's been crazy, so I've gotten a little behind on my comments and a little bit behind on my email responses. So if you've asked me something recently in an email, or you reached out to me in an email, and I haven't yet responded, it is nothing personal. It's just been crazy swamped. Also, as a teacher, we started the school year about 3 weeks ago. So I'm getting right back into the things with the school year going on, as well as officiating my first wedding and keeping up with my dad duties with my 2 daughters and my husband duties with my wife. Big news announcement. Now, last year, I made it pretty clear I was pretty bummed out that I didn't get to go to the National. Well, guess what? My room has been booked for Cleveland. I will be in town next year at the National. Probably going to be at the show for 2.5 days. And I am super excited to go to my first National in a little while. And yes, in case you're curious, I am dragging my dad with me across the country. So my dad will be along with me. So if you are going, I hope to run into you. And if I ever see any of you at any card show or you see me, stop me, say hello. I look forward to seeing a bunch of you at the National, especially the people from the East Coast that I don't see out here at some of the California card shows. So our first question of this week's Q&A is going to come at you right now. If you find a good deal on a card of a player UPC and can sell it for a profit, do you sell it or do you keep the card? So what a great question. What do you do when there's a card you'd like to have or a player that you PC and you want in your collection, but you get such a great deal on the card that there's meat on the bone and there's a quick profit to be made? Well, I thought about this one for a minute, and then I said, wait a second. That just happened to me about 3 or 4 months ago. See, I have several eBay searches constantly going. So I have saved searches. I've got about 20 of them. And, a few times a day, I'll just refresh and see what are the new listings in those saved searches. Well, one of the saved searches that I've had for a long time is the 1950 Bowman set. I really, really like the 1950 Bowman set, and I've been collecting cards from that set for a long time. Also, I've been pretty upfront for a while that I'm a huge Yogi Berra guy. I love Yogi Berra. Well, a 1950 Bowman Yogi Berra came up 3 or 4 months ago, and it was in a PSA 5 grade. And quite frankly, I think that there was a mistake. So the lister, the seller of this was the famous Burbank Sports Cards card shop. So they're a big seller on eBay as well. And so I noticed this card, and I noticed it was Burbank Sports Cards selling the card. And I looked at the price, and I'm like, what am I missing? This seems way too low. This is the price that showed up. Well, that particular card usually sells for, well, at the time at least, the card sold for $500 to $550. So I saw it for that price and I'm like, I have to buy this, right? Well, I looked, and about a week earlier, Burbank Sports Cards had sold the same card but in a 3. And it was the listing price of the 3 was the same listing price that they put this 5 up for sale. So I think what must have happened is somebody made a mistake, saw the old sheet, saw the 1950 Yogi Berra, saw the old price from when they listed the 3 and listed it at the 3 price. That's my guess. I have no idea. Either that or they just wanted to give me a really good deal. So what did I do? I bought the card. So I bought the card and I got it and I'm thinking, is there going to be something off? No, it was a gorgeous card. I'd love to have the card in my collection. So did I keep it or did I sell it? Well, I looked at the card and I thought this card would easily sell quickly for $500 for a card that I had just bought for, a couple $100 less than that. So I thought about it and I said, well, if this card was for sale right now for $500, would I buy it? And the answer was no. Now, I really like the card. I really would enjoy having the card. But if I would not buy it for $500, but I could sell it for $500, then I have to sell it. See, the way I look at things is every day you have something that has value, you're buying it at its current price. So if I have a $500 card and I decide to keep it, that means I'd be willing to spend $500 for the card. Because see, either I could have the $500 or I could have the card. So at that moment, I was like, I wouldn't buy it for $500. I love the card. But if someone will give me $500 for it, I'm going to sell it for $500. So I put it on eBay and pretty quickly sold it for $500. Now, eBay took their cut, and so, eBay got like $50 or whatever it is. And then, I had to pay a little bit of tax when I sold it, but I cleared well over $100, $130, we'll say $150 in a very short period of time, just from a quick flip. Now, generally speaking, whenever I buy anything, I buy things that I would be okay keeping, because that way if I get stuck with it, then I'd be okay having it. Well, I certainly would be okay having a 1950 Bowman Yogi Berra card in a 5. So I bought it, but then I just felt like it was worth more than what I would go and pay for it. So I sold it. So the answer to the question is, apparently, if I got a really good deal on a card of a player that I PC, I would sell it, because that's what I did.
There are so many platforms to buy and sell: online, shows, auctions, vaults, breaks, etc. How do you see vintage collecting proceeding post the Fanatics takeover of the hobby?
Yeah, this Fanatics thing is getting kind of interesting. Fanatics came in with a bang very recently, talking about how they wanted to 10x the hobby. And it's like, well, yeah, everyone wants to 10x their business. Join the club. But some of the things that they've done since then, and some of the ways they've positioned themselves, they're making a lot of noise. For one, we know about how Panini just lost their NFL agreement with the NFLPA. So the whole what's going to happen with football cards this year is completely up in the air. Don't think that Fanatics and their place in the card collecting hobby did not have something to do with that. It obviously did. Fanatics has come out and said they're really against breaking, and they want to have, a higher brand than breaking. They're going to put stipulations in place for who can and can't be an authorized dealer and buyer of of Fanatics products. Fanatics owns Lids. There are Lids stores in a lot of malls, a lot of outlet malls. And so Fanatics has retail space all over the place. So it's not unreasonable to think that there could almost be a mini card shop, or at least a place to buy some new wax in every Fanatics store nationwide. That is very, very possible. Fanatics has done some cool things with their, the patches and things that they're putting on the uniforms in order to, really take that and make it a premium card of a player. So yeah, I think things are going to change. They've talked about how they're going to have their big convention, and what will that mean for the National? Will they buy out the National? Now, the National recently was sold and changed hands, but maybe they'll buy them out. What about the Mint Collective, which is kind of an up-and-coming thing down in Las Vegas for cards? I mean, is Fanatics going to buy out the Mint Collective? Is Fanatics going to have something like the Mint Collective or like the National? None of us really know. And it will be interesting to see. But it seems to me what Fanatics is doing is they're trying to build their brand image. They're trying to not be kind of a bottom feeder who will just let anybody sell their stuff. They're trying to be more than that. So when they have a show, which it says they sound like they're going to do, I think it's going to be a high-end show. I think they might do regional ones. So I could see regional high-end shows with high-end giveaways, high-end appearances, high-end signers at some of these events. That's very possible. What will happen to card shops if Lids, and I'm just speculating, I don't have any idea, but if Lids starts selling cards and wax, and some of the shops aren't able to because Fanatics has put additional stipulations in place, like what would that do to local card shops? Because a lot of the revenue from local card shops is wax. Will it hurt local card shops? Because I think Fanatics needs local card shops. They need that community. So how this all plays out will be really interesting. Will Lids and local card shops have some sort of partner agreement? I don't know. I think it's really, really interesting to see how this is going to play out. But Fanatics has some really deep pockets, and there are going to be some changes, and they are not being shy about it. Also, who are they going to bring in as some of their executives? There's already been some movement just in the last week or two on some of the major card producing companies on the changes going on with their administration and their upper management. Are some of those people going to come over to Fanatics? Or more of those people going to come over to Fanatics? Yeah, I think that we're in a major shakeup, and I'm just really, really hopeful that it's for the good. Again, I'm a big fan of competition. So Panini stepping into a difficult situation that they're suddenly stepping into, losing that NFLPA license where they can't make NFL cards, is going to really, really hurt Panini. And we don't want Panini to go away. We want Panini to be strong. We want multiple companies that are producing high quality cards. That's what's in the best interest for the customer. And that's who I'm interested in protecting and looking out for. So we don't know what's going to happen, but I hope that we maintain competition. I hope that the brands are elevated from some of the things that Fanatics is doing. I hope that cards become more available as they're looking for ways to distribute and changing some of their distribution channels. And I hope that they start doing some more regional big shows. We know that there's a Dallas show and a Chantilly show and the Burbank show. We know there are some big regional shows. but I think that we need to have a bigger, a regional, national more often. And I think Fanatics might be working on something like that. That's what I'm hoping. Again, I have no knowledge of any of this, but that's my hope.
How do you approach TTM? How would I find mailing addresses for retired players? And how do you know which players require a donation and how much it is?
So I've been a long time autograph guy. You know, as a kid, I literally used some of my money from like my birthday and went out and bought books of stamps and boxes of envelopes and was doing through the mail as a kid. I would send the cards to the stadiums because those were the only addresses that I had. There was no internet when I was a kid that I could get addresses of players. So in the back of Beckett's, in the back of a Beckett magazine, it had all of the stadiums and their addresses. So what I would do is I would mail cards to stadiums of just random players, and I got some big autographs even back then. You know, I got Mike Schmidt, I got Andre Dawson, and again, this is at a time everything was free. So yeah, you know, a couple years ago I started doing that again, and I'll be honest with you, it makes going to the mailbox a lot of fun. It's like Christmas morning every time you go to the mailbox when you send these out. And I've gotten some big ones. Juan Marichal, Brooks Robinson, Bob Cousy, Robert Parrish, Dan Fouts, Mario Andretti, Richard Petty. I mean, I could go on and on and on. Ryan Sandberg, Dennis Eckersley, Mike Mussina. I mean, a ton of Hall of Famers, and most of them are either free or like $10. So I love the question, and I really, really encourage people to do it. And I know there are people out there that are like, just leave the players alone. These guys are retired. They want to enjoy themselves. My thought is this: if they didn't want us to do this, they wouldn't sign. By them signing, they're saying, no, this is fine. I mean, I got Jack Nicklaus on a photo for free. That's incredible, right? I got Tom Watson on his rookie card. I got Lee Trevino on a card, Curtis Strange on a card. I got lots of sports, lots of different people. So where do I get this stuff? How do I find the address? How do I find how much I send? Well, let's take a look right now. I'm going to show you a quick video of where I go to get the addresses, what addresses are working and which ones aren't, and how much the guys charge if they charge. Some of them are free, some of them charge a small fee, some of them charge a big fee. Like Reggie Jackson, he signs, but he charges a lot. Some guys like Steve Carlton he signs, but he charges a fair amount. And then other guys are like $5, and other guys, you know, are free. So take a look at this quick little video. I'll show you where I go, where I get the addresses, and kind of the process I take. And I highly recommend everyone does it. Why not?
All right, so Sports Card Forum is the website I use. It is free to sign up. You just give them your email address, and they will give you a free account. Up at the top here, you have TTM Manager. So you just find that and click on it, and then you find the sport you're interested in. And over here to the left, it has the top 25 most reliable for each sport. And then you could search individually. You can look up pretty much anyone. So if I click here on the baseball top 25, I mean, look at that list and look at the reliability percentage to the right. So if I click on this one for Brooks Robinson, and I see the first address here, if we look, you can see that address has not had a lot of success recently. So I go to the second address, and look at the success there. But look about this one. Lots of success with this address. And you can see what people paid. They just went ahead and shared what they did and what they sent and whether it got returned or not. So again, I mean, $10 for Brooks Robinson. I've heard people, I have a friend who sent it and didn't send any money. He still signed it. And, I mean, you are risking the card getting lost in the mail or not signed, but what a deal, right? The MLB retired Jackie Robinson's number, and they may retire Clemente's. The NBA retired Bill Russell's number, and the NHL retired Gretzky's. What are your thoughts on the NFL not having retired anyone's jersey league-wide? Who do you think would be some good candidates for the first one to be retired? What about a Jim Brown Day or someone else?
Boy, this is a really hard question. And I read this one a few days ago, and I've been thinking about it ever since. And I don't think I have a good answer. Yes, there's, NHL has Gretzky. Totally makes sense. NBA, Bill Russell. Quite frankly, I think 23 should be retired as well. But that's not my say. Baseball has Jackie Robinson for obvious reasons. I know there has been some speculation about Clemente also eventually having his number retired across the board. The question, though, about football is a tough one. And I don't know why it's tough, but, you bring up a couple of names like, you brought up Jim Brown. Jim Brown was an insane athlete, an insane football player. Some people rank as number 1 or 2 of all time. And he did a lot of good for, forward progress for some civil rights things, which is terrific. But there are a couple of things in his past that make it where I could see them not wanting to do it. Now, I'm not trying to disparage Jim Brown. I've shown you, I have a lot of Jim Brown cards. I'm a big Jim Brown guy, and I'm not going to say anything negative about Jim Brown, but there were some accusations of some domestic violence stuff at one point, and I could see the NFL going, no, we can't hang our hat there because it looks like we're hanging our hat with a guy who has this in his background when they've had that issue in the recent past. So I don't think that Jim Brown is going to have that happen. You bring up Gale Sayers. Gale Sayers is a great choice. But, and this is, I don't know what kind of grudge they hold, but, Gale Sayers sued the NFL not that long ago over some concussion stuff of protection of players. And would the NFL hold that against someone like Gale Sayers? Again, Gale Sayers was an amazing player. Gale Sayers did a lot for player safety after his career. And Gale Sayers, I think was an early example of a player who crossed, racial bounds and the story with him and Brian Piccolo, which, is in the Brian Song movie, and his friendship with Brian Piccolo and all the things that took place in that friendship as Brian Piccolo was sick, after Brian Piccolo was there for Gale Sayers when Gale Sayers was recovering from an injury, and how they were there for each other. Like that at that time was still a pretty progressive thing that he did, but would they hold the concussion thing over him? I don't know. That lawsuit, which ended up being settled, I think. And then somebody threw out, what about Pat Tillman? There was a comment to this question that said Pat Tillman, and that one makes sense. Whenever you think about retiring a player across the board, across the whole league, you're not just talking about a really good player, you're talking about somebody who did more than just be great on the field, but was great off the field. I read the book about how everything went down when Pat Tillman was killed in the war, during the last Gulf War, and I mean that's a very decent choice, but I don't think there's anybody that jumps out. I don't think that there's anybody who I see as like, well, yeah, that's just such an obvious choice. I think it will happen, but I don't know who. And I know this is a weird thing to consider, but like in baseball, when you have 99 numbers, right? But you have like a 40-man roster. Or in the NBA, when you have 99 numbers, but you have like 12 guys on the team. But then you start talking about football where you've got over 50 players, and now you've removed a number from an option, and then a lot of teams have some numbers retired. Like, does that play into it, that they don't want to run out of numbers? I don't think that should play into it, but it could play into it. I don't know. So it'll be interesting to see. If I had to pick one, excuse me, I think I'm in the middle of a cold, but if I had to pick one, I think the choices of Jim Brown and Gale Sayers are a good one. I think the choice of Pat Tillman's a really good one. Now that I don't have somebody that jumps out, so I guess I would take the easy way out and say one of them.
Who do you think is the biggest long shot who will eventually make the Baseball Hall of Fame?
All right. Oh, I always love a controversial question. And I think this one is probably controversial. Who is the biggest long shot? So that then brings me to what's considered a long shot. Are the steroid era players long shots? Is Barry Bonds a long shot? Or is that not considered a long shot? Roger Clemens, is that considered a long shot? I think both of them eventually are in the Hall of Fame. I don't know when, but I think eventually. There are players that I think should be in, like Thurman Munson, that aren't in, but I don't think he's really a long shot. And then you talk about the other group, which are kind of the ones that have some other type of scandal around them, like Pete Rose, and whether Pete Rose would get in. And I think a lot of people think he is a long shot, and other people think no, eventually he's getting in for sure. So if I had to pick one that I think a lot of people think will never get in, but I think will eventually get in, I'm going to go with Shoeless Joe Jackson. I mean, to me, the fact that Shoeless Joe Jackson's not in the Hall of Fame is insane. But again, that's coming from a guy who thinks that there are several people. So is he a long shot? I think some people would think he's a long shot, but to me, I think that he should be in, and I think he will get in. Eventually, I think he will get in. So that's going to be my pick. Great question, tough question. Let me know down below who's the biggest long shot you guys think will get in. But that's going to be my choice. Now, if you have a question for me, again, in the comments down below, just simply ask your question, type your question, and I will feature it in an upcoming episode. Now, if I don't get to it next week, I'll try to get it the following week, or if I don't ask your question again, because I only do 5 a week. Otherwise, this would be 2 hours long. Although that would be fun, I don't think all of you would want to watch for 2 hours. So that is it for this week. Look forward to those comments down below. And hey, shock me with a question. Give me a shocking question in this upcoming week, because a lot of the questions recently have been, you guys have been kind of easy on me. Give me a really, really hard question this week. Looking forward to them.